As a PA, have you ever seen job postings, especially for administration or leadership type positions within your organization, and they list the requirements? It must be a physician or an RN or NP, but there's no mention of PA. And then if you ask, they're like, oh, yeah, well, PAs don't qualify for this position. Excuse me? Why not? What is the issue here? Thankfully, it seems to be happening less than it did in the past, but there's still organizations out there that don't consider PAs for leadership. Boggles my mind. I don't understand. We have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree and any other type of jobs outside of medicine. That's going to get you definitely qualified to be into leadership. So, if you've ever thought about that or been frustrated about it, or you're just hearing about it now and want to know why that happens, then stay tuned because I have a fantastic interview with a PA who is high up in leadership within a very well respected medical institution. And she's going to talk about all these issues, plus how you can prepare yourself to become a good candidate and move into these leadership roles. Hi, it's Michelle with the Medicine Couch. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like my channel, please subscribe. And if you like the information that's presented in this video, please share it with colleagues who you think might also find it informative and helpful. Now, let's hear about PA leadership, why it's so important, and how we can get more PAs into leadership.
Hi, Michelle. Good to see you and be with you today. My name is Claire Kriakos. I'm the Chief Advanced Practice Officer at a large academic medical center. I've been a PA now for 16 years. I graduated from St. John's University, and at that time it was a bachelor's program, but I have pursued my master's since then, which I hope to talk to you a little bit more about later today.
Yeah, we're going to get into that because you made an interesting choice with your master's, and so we'll talk about the decisions why. But before we get to that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career path from graduation until now?
I started my PA career as a pediatric surgery PA. As I was in that role, I was one of the first PAs within that team, one of the first ones. We had two hospitals that we kind of supported, and I was the primary one in the another hospital, and we had another PA that I worked closely with. So we both kind of were the initial PAs within the team. And because of that, we had the opportunity, or I would say even the privilege, to be able to really define what the PA role was for our team. They weren't that familiar with the PA role. And so we had the opportunity to really show them what PAs can do. And by doing that, we had these opportunities to join various quality improvement initiatives, performance improvement initiatives. And I just loved that. I really loved kind of that administrative landscape behind the scene that I wasn't truly familiar with in from PA school or even initially in my PA career. And so just being able to get exposure to these types of initiatives, realize I have this strong passion for being able to improve things at scale. I really enjoyed that one-on-one patient interaction, but I felt like by working from a performance improvement aspect or quality improvement, you can really have a broader impact at patients at large. And so I started kind of thinking about how do I get myself there? How do I get more qualified to be able to lead different programs and initiatives? That's when I actually decided to pursue my MBA. Like I said earlier, I was in a bachelor's program. And so I knew that at some point in my life, I would want a master's. And during that time, I decided let's get a master's in business administration. And I felt like it just rounded my clinical skills to just have a little bit more of the business acumen that I needed to hopefully be a skilled healthcare leader within the organization. So I got that degree. I did some certifications, but I was trying to see, okay, what's my next step? What kind of role can I go into? And it was really a difficult time. I tried to apply for some entry level leadership roles, clinic manager roles. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to move forward. In fact, I think I've told you this previously. I was ineligible. I wasn't eligible, and I was really disappointed. And I was frankly didn't know what to do. I just invested a lot of money in getting my MBA, and there just wasn't that many opportunities for a PA to move into a administrative or a leadership role. And ultimately, I kind of came to a point where I decided I had to take a step back from clinical practice and move into a role as a performance improvement advisor. This was a role at a health plan. It was an amazing role where we really got to look at population health metrics and how we can improve care a lot for the entire population. With that, it didn't require you to be a PA. So I took really a step back from the PA practice, took a pay cut to be in this role, but I knew it was something that I hoped that would help me as kind of a stepping stone in my career to have actual leadership experience. And after working there for some time, I was able to find this opportunity at an academic medical center. And this was a dream come true for me because I finally, after searching for years, finally found a role that wanted a PA or an APRN, but wanted potentially a PA in a healthcare administrative role. And I went from a manager of advanced practice over time, have been able to grow into a director role, then executive director of advanced practice, and now currently the chief advanced practice officer within that same institution. So it's been just a wonderful journey.
Yeah, that's great. And there's so much there we're going to unpack and dive into the little things. So I guess probably the first thing to dive into is the master's degree that you decided to get. So as you said in in your intro, you graduated with a bachelor's degree back when PA programs were mostly bachelors. And when you went to get your master's, you had a choice, right? I mean, I think most people would think, "Oh, well, I would just go get my master's in PA studies." But you ended up going the MBA route. And would you kind of talk through your decision process? Did you think about the MPAS and what ultimately swayed you to the MBA?
So I wanted to broaden kind of the scope or the skills that I had. And so that's where I felt like the MBA would allow me to do that, right? People have an understanding of what an MBA is. And so hopefully it would not only give me the leadership skills and to be hopefully good at this job or whatever job that I'm able to get, land in after, but
Okay.
also have different hiring managers and hospital leaders be able to look at my profile, my resume, and understand, okay, she's a PA. Oh, there's an MBA. So just to be able to understand what that means. So I just wanted to diversify
Yeah.
kind of my experience and what I brought to the table.
And so, for those who have graduated with a master's in PA studies, if you're looking to go back, a lot of people think, oh, automatically the next step is maybe doctor of medical science or some kind of doctorate degree, which is not a wrong step by any means. But master's degrees like MBAs or some other concentration may be a great stepping stone as well. So, make sure to weigh those options. Okay, so in talking more about your training, you had mentioned also after the MBA that you got Six Sigma training. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and where people find that kind of training?
So I initially got a green belt certification in Lean Six Sigma, which is basically a performance improvement methodology, thinking about efficiencies, how to be more cost effective. So this certification helps you think about that in a very methodical way, data driven, objective fashion. It helps you really identify the root cause of the problem so then you can actually fix the problem in a sustainable way. And it's a certification that's offered through various institutions. While I was working in my initial organization, they offered that program for employees, but also you can sign up externally for external courses that many universities as well offer. So it's usually an
Okay.
online program,
How long do those normally take?
3 to 6 months. Oftentimes, we talk about degrees, especially for PAs to help, grow and diversify kind of our background and training. And we know that furthering our education can be really expensive with actually getting a master's degree or doctor's degree. So I do think some sort of certification courses like Lean Six Sigma is a great alternative or even an initial start if you're still thinking about, pursuing a master's or a doctorate degree.
Okay, so we're going to dive more into ways to build leadership skills. But first, I want to get back to the frustration of not being able to find administrative jobs that you could apply to as a PA. So I've seen them. I'm sure most people in the audience have seen these listings for some kind of position in administration. and it says must have an MD or an RN degree, and they don't mention anything about PAs. Or if you ask about the position, they say, well, that's not open to PAs. Is that the kind of thing, situations you were running into, and why does that happen?
That's exactly what I was running into. And it was so frustrating, right? I remember, I applied and I had this conversation with the hiring manager or somebody who was screening me. And I said, yeah, I'm a PA. And they're like, sorry, yeah, this is not for a PA. We're looking for, somebody who understands the clinical workflows and is a clinician, but could be able to manage, the entire team. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I do understand that, right? So it
Yeah.
was just it was a realization of the fact that people still don't really understand what PAs do. It's not all bad news. We're getting there. I think every day it's getting better. Because what I faced 10 years ago, I really hope that no one has to face that again. I think more and more we see that people are understanding the PA role, and I'm happy to see more openings or positions out there that include PAs. And I get so excited when I see that. It's also frustrating sometimes to say leadership experience is mandatory. Like you need to have formal leadership experience. And I think as PAs, we need to think about how we can better position even our clinical responsibilities. As a clinician, as a PA, we are leaders. We are leaders of our team. We are leaders, in advocating for the patients and guiding them. And so I think it's repositioning the clinical practice of a PA as a leader. So we are deemed eligible for these types of clinical leadership administrative roles. I'm not saying that we have all the training needed to be a healthcare administrator. I do think it's nice for PAs to further enhance their training to be able to be better equipped to be in one of those leadership or administrative roles. But with that said, it doesn't make us not eligible. I think PAs are
Okay.
eligible for these types of roles, and we're just as capable as other disciplines to be able to thrive and really contribute high value in those roles.
So if you're a PA and you were interested in moving into administration and you're doing the things on the side to kind of, build up your resume, but you still are seeing in your organization that PAs aren't being considered, what do you think PAs should do? What's the right way to challenge that is going to be recepted well in administration?
Yeah, I think um, step one is to find a common challenge or a common problem. What's important to the organization that you're working with or the team, the leaders that you're working with? Like find the problem or a pain point for them that as a PA leader, hey, I got this. I know how to solve for this. I know how I can engage the entire group here to get that right for them. So I think that will really help finding some common ground on saying, hey, can I volunteer? Can I work with you on this project? I'm really interested in this. So not necessarily leading with, hey, I'd like a title or I'd like time, I'd like to, move to another role, but how about I just start doing some of that work? And I know that's not easy. I know that it's not sustainable, but it's a great way to get your foot in the door and for folks to see what you as an individual can contribute. And I think as PAs, we really have to think about we're still representing the entire profession. So how you display yourself goes a long way because we're still educating not just patients about who PAs are, but other healthcare leaders about who PAs are. So every interaction is so important. And I do think there are usually committees and different task forces that PAs could possibly chair or lead quality improvement initiatives. And these are things that help build not only your skills, but also your resume and your qualifications to be more eligible for some sort of like formal role that comes up in your organization or even external.
Yeah, and get your name known within the organization too. And then, when you say, well, yeah, I would love to do this role, but it says it's not open to PAs, and then they'd be like, oh, well, you're qualified. Let's look at that. Hopefully that's how things go. So let's talk about the APP leadership. We're going to talk more about that title of APP or advanced practice, but tell us first what all falls underneath that title.
Nurse practitioners, physician assistants, clinical nurse specialists, and certified registered nurse anesthetists. Midwives, certified midwives are also part of this group, but we don't employ them in my current organization. But I would say the terminology advanced practice usually encompasses these five disciplines.
Do you think it's a bad thing in your experience for us to be in the APP category?
So, in my experience and my own personal opinion, is that it's been incredibly valuable in actually elevating PA practice within the organization that I work for. First of all, I would say it is important to recognize the individual unique profession and the disciplines. We know that everyone has different training, everyone has different needs, as they come on board, and potentially different backgrounds. But what I've found in leading a group in a collective fashion as advanced practice has helped us to bring together this group collectively and then focus on the shared challenges that we have. And because of that, it's allowed us to move faster and be able to solve for things more quickly than we would have if we were to approach it kind of one discipline at a time. There's so much synergy, I think, from an organizational leadership structure perspective, that bringing this group together under one umbrella with a respectful term. Previously, I'm sure, Michelle, you've heard quite a bit, physician extenders, mid level providers, and those are terms that I find very disrespectful and doesn't highlight the value and the role that advanced practice providers perform and bring to the table. So I feel like the term advanced practice provider is a respectful terminology. It highlights that we are providers, being able to evaluate, manage, treat, diagnose patients. It's a respectful way of collectively referring to the different disciplines that are part of that. And I just have seen so much scalability in our ability as an organization to be able to lead and improve practice for all of the advanced practice disciplines that come under that umbrella.
So we keep talking about your title, but I think sometimes a lot of pricing PAs are like, I just don't even know what it is that you would do. So can you kind of give us an idea of what your job entails?
As a chief advanced practice officer, I consider my role as a healthcare leader, thinking about how do we solve for the challenges that we're all facing in healthcare, whether it be patient access, quality of care, our patients, the complexity that we're dealing with, and how do we sustain and or even improve the quality of care that we're providing to our patients. I think in my role as a chief advanced practice officer, I get to pull in the APP expertise at that table in thinking about strategically how do we help solve for these healthcare challenges. Not everyone fully leverages the capabilities, the talents, the skills that advanced practice providers can bring. And so having a healthcare leader who fully understands that value that an APP can do, and even in some areas, understanding the guardrails and the boundaries, so we also protect the licenses and the certifications of our PAs and other advanced practice providers. So being that subject matter expert, but looking at how you are more of an institutional leader, solving for the challenges that the organization is facing, but having the ability to bring that APP voice and expertise to that table.
That's so cool because I think so many times we feel like it's them against us, administration, business people against
Mhm.
clinicians and stuff. So it is important that more clinicians, I think, move into these administration roles so that we know we are represented, but also so that decisions are made that are realistic for what the providers and clinicians and people can actually handle when it comes to the being on the floor or being in the front lines of things. I think, and I think a lot of clinicians think like that they get paid a lot more than we do as clinicians. And I'm not asking for numbers, but is it generally or often an increase in salary if you go to administration, or is it in your experience tend to be lateral?
That's a really great question, because I think it can vary. Going into administrative positions or leadership role with the mindset that, oh, it's going to be an increase will ultimately fail you because and the reason for that is, especially in what we're seeing in kind of the market today, with the workforce challenges that we're facing. Advanced practice providers are paid very highly, right? And so sometimes, yeah, it could be a lateral move or potentially even a pay cut, but sometimes mostly a lateral. You could probably find many different leadership roles that allow you to obtain clinical practice still. And maybe some of those would be, kind of taking that into account and can have some of the benefits that we see with weekend pay, holiday pay. But when you fully transition to a leadership role, you lose some of those benefits of the differentials, the night shifts, the extra shift pay, the on call pay. You're just on call all the time and there's just no pay for it, right? So when you look at total compensation, it likely is maybe a decrease to lateral. And over time, I think it can increase. So it has to be something you really want to do, you really enjoy. That has to be why you're in it.
What are some other ways, if any, do you have advice for people who want to get more experience to move into administration?
Yeah. So, one thing that I didn't mention earlier that I definitely want your audience to know about is a administrative fellowship for clinical APPs. This is a unique opportunity. There's probably 2 to 3 in the country that I know of. This is meant for clinical APPs who are interested in moving into an administrative or leadership, formal healthcare leadership role but don't have the experience, but really want to get some of that training. And so it's a 1 year program, typically similar to kind of the clinical fellowships and residencies that most PAs are familiar with, but it's focusing on administration. And I think this is a really, really great way to kind of immerse yourself in a leadership role. So I think it's really exciting. And I will say, Michelle, part of that, remember I told you about the clinic manager call that I got and I wasn't eligible for. So I thought, okay, well, let me go do a fellowship in administration. And so, because there are administrative fellows within healthcare organizations that are non-clinical typically, and so
Uh,
I applied for those, and again, I was told, well, you're a PA, you're not eligible, you're a clinician. So I kind of hit a dead end there too. Like in one way, I'm a PA and I wasn't eligible for this clinical leader role, and I can't be a non-clinical leader role because I'm a clinician. And I'm like, okay, this is just crazy. And this is why I I was so I wanted to start this fellowship program because specifically for the clinical APP who wants to move into leadership, let's break down the walls. Let's open up the doors and give these people opportunities and the training that they need so they can be successful.
are you seeing organizations hungry to get clinicians into administration?
Yeah, I do. I do think that they see the value and are recognizing it. And in most places, to your point, there's policies and procedures that are just in place or culture that just exists. And sometimes it just takes a second for someone to just raise their hand and say, hey, why did we do that? Can we try this? And I'll tell you, most people, well, in some cases, if you're lucky, they'll say, yeah, let's do that. Why have we been doing it? So we can't assume that things will have to stay the way they are if we haven't challenged it at minimum by just asking the question. And I've
Yeah.
seen things in the organization I've been with, things just have evolved just by asking the question. And, simple as having APP representation at our medical executive committee or board and having that level of an APP representation. It was just a question, shouldn't we have APPs there? And yeah, so you're right, we should, especially with the number of APPs that are within our organization. It makes sense. So a lot of these decisions were made at a certain point in time. And based on how healthcare has evolved, how your organization has evolved, they are probably ready for some of those questions. Just need someone who cares enough to ask for it.
Well, thank you so much, Claire, for joining us today and wishes of continued success for you in your career.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, if you're interested in this kind of thing and you want to hear about more PAs who have stepped up and filled leadership positions, then watch these videos here. If you're looking for just general information on PAs working in all the different medical specialties and doing cool and unusual jobs all around the world, then check out the playlist on my main channel page. Thanks for joining me. And as always, take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.